Hey everybody, happy Monday night. Today is June 12th, 2023. This is Across the Pitch. I am Mike Barrera. I have above me Dave and Jose. Dave, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to be back. Obviously, had missed the show last week. Doing some overtime at work. I mean, it's good to be back. I mean, it's a shame I'd have rather been back in more happy circumstances with the win, but I mean, you can't win them all in one game unbeaten run. You know, you climbed from 10th, 11th place in the Eastern Conference up to third. I mean, it probably could be frustrated, but I think at the same time, there's a lot to look forward to in this second half of the season.
Agreed. Jose, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Still recovering, I must admit. Manchester City, champions of Europe, the treble. First time an English team has done it since 1998-99. So Saturday come, I don't know, 5 o'clock. I think Dylan's watching. He was with me ever since then till like maybe kickoff for the Union. Liquid was flowing pretty well in my house. So we were celebrating. I was excited. But as Dave mentioned, what an opportunity this could have been, right? With teams like Cincinnati dropping points and Nashville as well to, had we tied or won, I think climb to second at the very least for the foreseeable future as we go into a 10-day break now. So all in all, excited to be here with you both and kind of discuss this probably quick show, I imagine, considering we have a break coming up here. But just, again, happy to provide for all that listen.
Yeah, probably will be a quick show. For those of you who don't know yet, the Union are on a break until the 21st of June, I believe is the correct date, where we go to travel on a midweek game rather, to Orlando City. So for now, we're going to discuss the San Jose match. I know for those, we were thinking it was going to be at least a 1-1 draw. I was hoping for a 2-1 win, but ended up being a 2-1 loss at San Jose. Dave, I know you were up late with me, man, watching the game. You were up until the wee hours of the morning in England. What were your thoughts on the game?
I mean, again, the first half. I mean, especially the final 15 minutes. I thought both teams were quite exposed at the back. Obviously, the opening goal a bit soft. Obviously, Kyle Wagner had his first assist of the season, which was great to see.
Yep.
I thought he probably put in 2 or 3 really good set pieces in that game. And he was, I think, I won the second half where I think. I don't know who it was, but someone failed to make like proper contact. So I win the free kick.
Glesnes. Yep.
Glesnes, yeah. It was just a frustrating game where I think the Union probably did enough to win, but they've had luck in the last 9 games as well themselves, with the opposition going their way. So it was always going to happen at some point.
Jose, I know you were, like you said, celebrating, going crazy all weekend. So what of the match were you able to catch, and what are your thoughts on the outcome here?
So I caught probably the first 45 minutes of the match, and then I just fell asleep. But I did watch the entirety of the match on a second replay and really caught up to the fact that, it makes you wonder what this team would be like if we had a prime, and I would argue it's prime right now, Jamita Monteiro, because he had a heck of a match against us this past weekend. But also just, man, that yellow card against Martinez, how it has come to bite us. Not that Bueno had a bad game, but I think someone like Martinez would have eaten up a lot of that space that was there. I mean, you think about that first goal, a long ball, great hold-up play, dishes it back, and Nathan Harriel gets caught ball watching and beaten on that through ball in a way, not being wide enough or keeping the player on the inside rather than giving him the outside lane. But all in all, as Dave mentioned as well earlier, it's tough to be angry or upset about the loss, maybe disappointed, but what a stretch we've had here, right? Yep. We after the sky was falling from 2 back-to-back losses and coming out of 2 competitions in a short week, climbing all the way from 10th to 3rd place in the league. Can't hate on that, but happy to see Damian Lowe. What a header that was. Yeah. Powerful through and through, bulged the net at the end there. So, Mike, eager to hear your thoughts.
Well, there's a handful of things. For one, the goal from the first goal from I always mess up his name. The guy from San Jose, the striker, Ibabisi, right? How do you pronounce it, Jose? Because I'm always terrible at this.
Your guess is as good as mine, and I know it's terrible. And frankly, yeah. I have a hard time even believing what commentators in the U.S. how they pronounce
it. That's true.
So, Ibabisi?
Yeah, I think it's like
Ebobisse?
Ebobisse. It's a tongue twister, and after a long day of work, I'm just gonna call him that guy. So
Right.
he finds Cal on the left hand side, and you're right. Nathan just gets burned on the left easily, and once the hold up play is there, Jack Elliott is kind of caught in the middle as well because you see Bueno trailing Montero into the box,
Yep.
and Cal is bracketed by Glesnes and Nathan, and then Ebobisse just comes right to the top. He's like, "Oh, I was just going to take this shot." But you know what? If you look at the game from the statistical perspective, the Union took a ton of shots on goal. I thought most of their chances, they could have easily had 3 goals.
Yep.
They obviously had many whiffs, and we'll kind of get to those in a few minutes. But I think about it, it was very Miami game-esque. It took 2 goals from outside the box to beat us, and they just got the best of Blake, especially the second goal. I mean, the second goal from was it
Unbelievable.
oh my god, from Trauco, it was unbelievable.
The one you could argue, Mike, is that first one. I
Yeah.
was really. I don't know that Apple TV showed me too many angles to really comprehend what happened. It's not like the Carranza goal we witnessed last week where he perfectly bends the ball around 2 bodies, or better yet this weekend, Rodri against Inter Milan just bending the ball perfectly, through 2 bodies to sneak it back in. I didn't see any of that, so I'm sort of wondering what happened. Was he just not footed correctly, not completely planted, that the ball just snuck past him? Because it again, you mentioned the Inter Miami loss and the worldies that got past Blake that you can't be too upset about, but that first goal, I was kind of thinking, how from outside the box with that's a little sus.
It wasn't the strongest of goals. I've got a few comments rolling here. So my buddy Pat's joined us. I'm in here, Sup Fellows. Shout out. Apparently he's calling me the Skip Bayless of MLS. I'm not sure that's a compliment, Pat, but I'll take it for now. And we also have longtime listener Eric. This was a loss I could live with, though don't want.
Yeah.
You just didn't finish and had their chances. Listen, Eric, I agree with you 100%. If you're going to lose a game, you lose it to a West Coast team. And really, in soccer, and then Dylan's trying to Ebobisse. I think I pronounced it correctly there. So we're going to go with thank you, Dylan, for the phonetics here. It's one of those where you played decent enough to get a draw. But sometimes in soccer, as we see so many times, how many times we watch a game and a team's playing well for 40 minutes and then it takes one little bounce from the opposing team and boom, they're down 1-0. That's how soccer goes sometimes. And you look at Carranza now. So we're going to, if you want to talk about those 2 misses, right? You look at Colorado match, he has that miss where he doesn't get around the ball enough. You look at the Montreal match, he misses the sitter. But then you go back to the assist from Bueno, that would have been assist from Bueno, which I was hoping for. I mean, Carranza just skies it. I don't understand how he's missing these shots. And then Glessen's just, he just hopped when he should have just stayed on his feet. That's really about it. But Dave, concerns with Carranza here, because those are really bad misses.
I think, to be fair, I think, in his defense, I feel like the fact he can get away with it. Obviously, we look at a player like Kasper Schmeichel, who was somewhat prolific for the Union, but he had his fair share of counters. But I think Carranza offers so much more to the Union, as well as his goal scoring. Albeit he does miss some terrible chances, but he can still score goals. He can score from nothing, and he can hold up the ball. He can put press. He does a lot of big things, which I think is so great. Obviously, as you said, the misses are concerned. I think the one on was it the Colorado one where it was sort of really out wide?
Yes.
And shot was left foot. Yeah, I think I'll let him off for that with it being his weak foot and being at a tight angle. I think that one though, I think you have to hit the target, and I think from a striker's perspective, you're probably put into an awkward situation when you're sort of you've got 2 or 3 players on the line. You're thinking, I've got to try and hit this into the top corner, hit as hard as I can. But to do that, you've got to get your body over it and put your laces to it. And he sort of didn't lean back, but he stayed very much upright and put his side foot into it, which sort of bent it over the top of the crossbar, which is a big miss. But I think the Union had another massive chance around that period as well. I don't know who put the ball in. It might have been Carranza or Ua for Gazdag, with the ball's actually half an inch away from going there. I think, apart from the goal, that really was sort of the pattern of the night, really, for the Union. Had some really big chances, good opportunities, and just couldn't score. I think McGlynn had a massive chance towards the end. I think Ua, I think it was Ua who had that big header.
It was Carranza again, wasn't it?
That was also Carranza. He went down low for a header and that was a little tougher of a shot, granted.
Yeah.
But regardless, to Jim Curtin's point, he doesn't want to ever highlight moral victories. But I'd say if there was ever some sort of silver lining here, they had their chances. They just didn't finish their chances. It just really comes down to that. Jose, any concerns with your boy? Julian.
No concerns. I mean, listen, we're talking to a player with the caliber that this year, despite not being a golden boy for the MLS on social media or any other channels that they use, that should be in the conversation for player of the year when you look at
Yeah.
his statistics, right? And what he's done in both scoring and assisting, never mind things that don't show up in the stat sheet, such as how well he presses, how hard he works,
Yeah.
and as Jim mentioned a couple of press conferences ago, someone who's probably not going to stick around with the Union for too long, and we should be cherishing these last couple of games that we get with him, you know? So, interestingly enough, I think that the I'm surprised Bueno, to be completely honest, for you, Mike. I'm surprised that Bueno didn't take that shot and that he passed it across.
It was
First
a
and
perfect
foremost,
pass. It was a perfect pass. And I want to just compliment Brian here for this lovely comment. I'm the Scott Van Pelt. Thank you for correcting my other friend there. But go ahead, Jose.
that miss, the Carranza miss there was a carbon copy of what we saw in Montreal. In that, sure, the Montreal one was a deflection back to him. Never mind a pass on a silver platter that he just went ahead and completely just botched. And you could tell with how frustrated he was and how long he stayed staring at the sod after the miss.
Yeah.
But am I concerned? No. His best friend is going to be continuing to shoot, and I think that's what he's going to do, right? He's going to continue to learn from these opportunities. Fast forward, as we talked about a minute ago, that header, that net on a very, very tight angle, that goes in. We completely forget about that loss. If not, we maybe don't even bother talking about it on this episode. Maybe we talk about it, I don't know, 3 shows from now. Though, again, we're still talking about the Montreal miss despite him having a brace. So it's tough, right? It can't win from time to time like that. But to also Jim's point, he had mentioned, and thank you, Dave or Mike, whoever covered the press conference, you have to be perfect playing away from home. And that's exactly what the Union needed. And that's exactly what the Union did not do, especially with a cross-country flight like that. So it's as close as it gets to being perfect at an away match like that.
Okay, I'm going to spin one question off then. I feel like one person who wasn't as perfect then was Nathan Harriel. I thought he had a so-so match. I mean,
Sure.
we highlighted the first, missed opportunity there. Dave, do you think it might have been a mistake to then not play Olivier? Oh, no, Olivier then wasn't even on the roster. Actually, you know what? I'm going to double back.
He was
Yeah,
at
go ahead.
Cameroon, wasn't he?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to double back here because in the press conference, I forgot. Because guess what? The press conference is like 1:20 in the morning. So the fact that I remember any of it is amazing. But Jonathan Tannenwald asked Jim, what happened to Olivier before the match? And Jim Curtin was like, huh? What are you talking about? And Jonathan said, oh, well, he looked like he kind of walked off the field and went somewhere. So I don't even know what happened to Olivier. Dave, have you noticed anything? Any news going around about that?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think the weird thing, obviously, you've seen that team, you sort of think, where is Olivier? I wasn't sure if he'd been called up for international or if he was due to play, so that might have been a factor why he wasn't involved. But yeah, I think it's an interesting thing to see. I think, obviously, Nate, I think for me, Nate Howard and Bueno perhaps didn't have the 2 best games. Little Bueno was perhaps got lacking a couple of times in possession, misplaced a few passes. But yeah, I think one obviously tried to quickly move away from the Barzo injury, which obviously was concerning. I think he does suit that back 5.
Yeah,
Playing with the back 5 more than Nate Harriel does.
agreed.
Maybe that's because he's more up and down the field and he's perhaps a bit more expansive. But I think the Union look more vulnerable playing a back 4 than they do with a back 5. There was so many gaps in behind. And I thought San Jose, especially when the games were 1-1 and after they just scored, they were getting so much joy getting in behind the fullbacks and, there was just so much open space around that back 4. Don't know if you guys noticed that as well. It was a bit concerning,
I think that's a great transition to my next point that I want to talk about. But before I do, Eric mentions the Union lost because Wando wasn't shirtless in the supporters section, which is a great throwback.
Oh my God,
Eric,
that's a throwback.
If you remember, Eric, I don't remember the score of the game, so remind me if you do, because I remember that game very well. What was it? It was a comeback, wasn't it, Jose? Something like that. Eric, I'm sure you're going to remember, so I'll throw it to you. But Jose, I had a little bit of concerns about the change of formation on Saturday night. I had some question marks there. I want to hear your thoughts on it because I have an alternative to what they could have done.
I must admit, I wasn't paying too much attention to it
Fair enough.
because I have been trusting Jim, and as we all should, right? We've been trusting Jim, and he's been sticking around with what we expected. But to see some of the changes, you're right. Some out of necessity with Bueno, but you still had a strong body of players to carry this team, right? With Glesnes, with Lowe, Kai, Gazdag, Ua, Carranza, enough that there really shouldn't be that much of a drop off. So, sure, could you align them a little bit differently, or maybe stuck around to what has worked? Sure, absolutely. But it's also tough to argue about that when you have that body of players that should be, despite traveling across the country, be able to sort something out. But I don't know. I'm. What are your thoughts, Mike?
So, for those who missed the transition, they started with the back three. You had, Lowe, Elliott was in the middle, Gless on the right, and then you had Kai and you had Nathan. So right after Damien Lowe scores his goal, he pops his hamstring maybe about 5 or 10 minutes later. In the press conference, Curtin says he felt a pop. That's our biggest concern right now. We don't really know what's going to happen. So be it. The commentators were calling for Brandon Craig. I disagreed with that. I didn't think it was the right time to see him in that spot.
I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
No,
I watched the replay muted.
They were like, oh, Brandon Craig should be here right now. They're like, oh, well, we want to see the center back. So they switch. They bring in Jack McGlynn, and then they go 4 in the back. You put Kai Wagner further back on the left. And then you have McGlynn, Leon Flock in the 6. You had Bueno on the right, and then you had Gazdag up top. I don't know. I mean, we've been talking about the past, 3 weeks now. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? The only reason why Matt Real started the other game was because Damian Lowe was hurt. Matt Real played well in that position. Why not put Kai into the back three and put Matt Real in the winger position where he had a very solid game? And then
after getting all that praise too, Mike,
Exactly.
You listened to that conference. He was praising Jim, or Dave. One of us was listening to the conference alongside me reporting. Matt Real was the star of Jim's mouth.
And now you've replicated what worked so well only a couple weeks ago with Matt Real in the winger, and you have Kai in the back. That would have been me. And now I'm not against the diamond in certain situations. I know that Jim likes to go to it, but I just feel like it was just a little forced for that moment. Now you have Leon Flock in the 6, who we've already seen is not exactly the best by himself in that spot. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of that. I would have, weird to say, I would have rather seen Real over McGlynn at that point, and then maybe later on in the match, if needed, put McGlynn in. Sure, whatever. David, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think obviously you've had such an emphatic win the previous week with, the players that you had. No, a couple of weeks ago, sorry, with the players that you had at your disposal. Obviously moved Kai inside and, pushed Matt Real out wide. But I feel like to change that sort of back five, I could understand, obviously, if you've got a centre-back returning or if, people are fully fit. So I think Damien Lowe missed that game due to an issue. I don't want to speculate what the issue was, but I know it was a non-footballing issue.
Damien had the knee issue, the drainage issue.
Yeah.
Lots of
the issue. So obviously he wasn't involved, or he was involved in the bench. Had to come off. So yeah, I mean, obviously he's come back in. That's a good thing to see. But I feel like, as you sort of said, Mike. Obviously, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, if you've got to take Damien Lowe out, then put Matt Real in and just sort of literally all you've got to do is move one player inside and you've done the job, as opposed to going, okay, Kai, you're playing up here, you're now dropping here, this player's dropping there. Do you know what I mean? You're just changing the whole shape in the middle of the game.
And then go ahead. Sorry, just not to cut you off, Dave. And then my buddy Rich chiming in, saying, "Great job as always. Appreciate you chiming in, Rich, saying if it ain't broke, don't fix it."
Yeah.
And also, Dave, to your point, now you have McGlynn recovering on some of these defensive plays. I just don't feel very comfortable seeing that every single time.
Yeah, I think maybe obviously perhaps the lack of support midfield. Obviously, you had Leon Flack playing in the 6, Bueno and McGlynn sort of in that wide spot. So McGlynn does a good job, I think, as you sort of said to me when we were speaking about the game. Like McGlynn was obviously playing a bit of a deeper role and just letting Kai push up the pitch. But again, that then presents issues because obviously Jack McGlynn's a fantastic player on the ball. He's got a great footballing mind, but he's not exactly the best or quickest defensively. I mean, there is going to be a bit of exposure there. If you're bombing one player on, you're expecting the centre midfielder to try and track and cover, wingers and attacking fullbacks as such. So, yeah, I think I could understand. Obviously, he's had he impressed a lot throughout the tournament, and he got a lot of names. So perhaps Jim, wanted to reward him for that and get him back into the team as quickly as possible. But perhaps it wasn't for the overall team. Perhaps it wasn't the right time.
Agreed. Jose, what are your thoughts on either that substitution or another substitution later?
No, it's still confusing to me. And Dave, I know you've been banging the drum about this in our group chat, but the US substitutions and who he brought in with Joaquin Torres and what a non-factor he's been over the last couple of weeks, and frankly maybe ever since game 1 this year, right, where he put a couple players in the spin cycle and then scored a goal and whatnot. But also, kind of questionable. We get scored on the 57th, but we wait till the 76th to make some changes. And statistically speaking, you could argue that things all along the match were going our way in terms of possession, passing, shots, etc. But we're talking about, or Jim has talked about rotation and the importance of it. I don't see how this team progresses beyond what we achieved last year with the striker core that we have right now. When Donovan is your first sub in to try to find a goal is a very tough thing for me to get through and believe that he's going to create anything, right? And I know he's had some shining moments. We've witnessed them, but I just don't know that that's the striking core that gets us an MLS Cup. So whether we keep Carranza or not, then we're talking about replacing one and adding another one to enhance what we have. So waiting until the 76th minute, a little tough for me, but also, the bodies that we're putting in there is a little tough to think that we would come back away from home with who we put in.
I find it interesting. Well, here's one idea, Jose. I'm going to throw this at you, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong here, okay? Because I think you'll remember this better than Dave at this point. What position did Harris play? He was a 6, wasn't he?
He was very much a 6.
Yeah.
He was that pivot player who would just guide.
So, yeah, no, defensively he wasn't really the best. But, I mean, would you ever consider, in a situation like that, putting Jack in the 6, McGlynn in the 6, and having Leon on the left where he's done better in? Because the problem that we've seen is that if Kai Wagner's on the left of the diamond in the back line, and you have Leon Flock on the left side of the diamond, Kai can be as reckless as he wants because he knows Leon is right there to cover him. Yeah, McGlynn doesn't have that same, go ahead.
Right, but ideally for McGlynn to have that type of role, you'd hope that he would be paired up with the best center defensive midfielder in the world, in the MLS right now.
You can say the world. It's okay.
No. The best in the world probably plays in England right now, and I'm not gonna say what team, but when you have Martinez behind you, you can let McGlynn just ping balls left and right, or at least that's the hope, right? He's got the leg and he's got the passing, he's got the vision. So I'm interested to see when that experiment finally happens, but I think we're a long way away. And Dave, I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts about our striking core. I know we've gone back and forth about it, right? Yeah, this team needs to add to that.
I 100% agree. I think, obviously, I'm not sure when the transfer window opens up, but I mean, you have to bring in a striker, whether, another striking option, in respect to Chris Donovan. But I think, again, when you're losing 2-1 in a game, your knees in a goal, why do you bring off a striker for a 5'5", 5'6" attacking midfielder when instinctively, the longer the game goes on, the more you need to get a goal, you're going to start being more direct, you're going to put the ball long into the box, and you take off a striker who's 6 foot or whatever, he's got a good aerial presence, and you lose that sort of sense. You start pushing up Glesnes and Elliott, and you lose a bit more defensively. So when the ball goes up, you can't hold onto it as often. Like, I can understand. Again, that the two strikers had a lot of joy in that game. Like,
I know, go ahead.
Like, Mikhail caused some problems down that right. I think I messaged you, Max. I think Mikhail's getting a lot of joy down there right. We're using his pace to get beyond defenders. Won a couple of fouls. He had a good couple of chances, like using his pace and outmuscling players. And I thought, there's a goal in this for the Union, and I think it never dropped. And I think obviously just to Eric's point about Curtin taking forever to
make a sub.
To make a sub. The more concerning thing is the fact that Jim's subs are too predictable. So I don't know. Obviously, Jose, you follow the Premier League. I don't know if you saw the rumours a couple of years ago that Unai Emery planned his substitutions before the game.
Yeah, that was supposedly widely reported that he would have a perfect timeline of when he would do subs. kind of
It
ridiculous,
sort
but
of
yeah.
feels like that for the Union. The subs always happen. It's similar like patterns, if you know what I mean. Like Mikel was always going to come off after 60, 70 minutes, regardless of the score, regardless if the Union need a goal. He will come off regardless. Doesn't matter. He will come off. And, the field changes or a fullback will be replaced. One of the right backs will be replaced like with 15, 20 minutes remaining. Do you know what I mean? Like similar sub patterns as well. So perhaps, of course, with that, in the game, you always have to expect the unexpected, but it can become quite predictable.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, in a game like where you are chasing the game, you're playing against a back three. I don't understand why you sacrifice a striker for attacking midfielder. I can understand bringing Bueno off for attacking midfielder, so you've got more bodies. You can perhaps be a bit more wide. You can add a bit more width or whatever. But to then pretty much go for like a 4-2-3-1, you're isolating your one striker, and you've got obviously like two pretty small like attacking midfielders coming onto the pitch. You aren't going to offer that physicality. Sort of, it just makes the game perhaps a bit more crowded. Just there's not going to be much room anyway. So you're trying to bring on ball playing players to, break through that. You're not exactly like Man City, Barcelona, where you can be able to dot pass it through. Like it's a difficult thing to do. We obviously you guys would have seen as well. The Union, the build up to try and get the ball into the box because the gaps and the spaces were so limited. The Union were taking 20, 30 seconds passing the ball around when they could have literally played one pass, got it into the box if they had another striker. Or do you know what I mean? They were just trying to wait for that gap to open. It was never coming.
I'm sorry, Mike, but never mind that. As critical as I have been about Kasper Schmeichel, that first goal against us this weekend, incredible hold-up play, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that maybe we don't have. And I think Mikel Ua has tried to do it, and I think Gazdag has tried to do it as well. Carranza is often fairly wide, where that's very difficult for him to do that. But how lovely it would be to score one of those goals, right? Where hold up, play back to the midfielder, that pivot person, or the first one up being the number 10, and then ping it to the corner, go into the box, pass it back, shot, goal. That would be great, but not the way we score.
No, well, see, let's talk about the subs more in depth, more intricately here. So the first sub was obviously, as I mentioned, Leon. I'm sorry, not Leon. McGlynn comes in for Low. So then you have Bueno replaces Ua. You have Quinn Sullivan replaces Bueno. And you have Chris Donovan replacing Flock at the end, right? Isn't that who Donovan came in for?
Sorry to correct you there, Mark. It was
McGlynn.
Sorry, it was Torres for Ua, not what's called Bueno for Ua. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, yes, you're right. Yes, I'm sorry. Torres. So if you are going to take Ua off, I don't know why you don't put Sullivan up there.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%, Dave. If there was ever a game where I wanted to see more of Michael Ua, I thought it was this match. I thought he played fairly well. He had a very good chance right before he came out.
Yeah.
In the second half. So then why not just put Quinn Sullivan in first, replace Bueno? That's fine. Now you have McGlynn on the left, you have Quinn Sullivan on the right. You still have your top three up top. That's 5 players creating a lot. And with Leon Flock in the 6, you can get a little bit more aggressive with somebody up top from the center backs if you have to. It just, I completely agree with you. It made no sense to put Torres in right there at all. And then you bring in Donovan late. I mean, that's whatever. But Eric mentions in the comments, you just need more. You need more from this. If you can't trust Quinn Sullivan to take Ua's spot in that moment, or if you can't trust Ua to play 15 more minutes, then clearly there's something missing from this team. I mean, it's obviously Corey Burke at this point. Let's just call it for what it is.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Corey Burke. Yeah, that he would have been massive in a match like this.
I think you do though. You do lack sort of like a battering ram, someone who's going to cause chaos. I think Jose, you said it quite often last year, like the chaos of Corey Burke, or chaos goal where the ball goes into the box and Burke bundles his way in, and just smash it from close range or head it, or like the Union just don't have that in their repertoire. Like sometimes you do need to play like that who can just come off the bench and contribute straight away by being that big physical presence in the box. And when you do need a goal and teams are going to sit back, you can shove him in there. He can then take 2 defenders off of Carranza, who then perhaps becomes, is now more one-on-one with the defender. Then you've got a better opportunity to play the ball into his feet, and he's got more opportunities to do what he does. But of course, when you go to a 4-2-3-1 or whatever the hell the formation was in the final, 25 minutes,
it was a cluster F, if you know.
Yeah.
Listen, you have to know, you don't have to look much further than to need a player like Corey Burke when you look at what he did against New York City FC last year, right? His goal where it was literally just him battering through, the ball falls in front of him, and he just puts it past Sean Johnson inside the box. Like, we don't have that. And am I asking for that type of soccer out of our team the entire game? No, I would
Yes.
hope some more finesse in a way. But I just hope that we do something in the transfer and not just hope that this is the core that gets us through, including, as Eric mentions, an old, all things relative, Bedoya, who I just can't fathom that this is the core that gets us.
Yeah, and Eric mentions or breaking a goalkeeper's leg in MLS Cup, referencing Corey Burke. So let's discuss Bedoya now, because Jose, you and I had talked about the what if factor with Bedoya. When is he going to come back? What if he comes back against San Jose? Now he has not come back against San Jose,
I was right. I
nor
told
was
you,
nor
no
was he on the
travel.
bench. Nor was he
No
on the bench.
travel. Stay
So
home.
Dave, discussion that you missed this past week is
Oh, yeah.
if you bring back Bedoya against San Jose, you're forcing him off injury to travel West Coast to play a game at 11 o'clock at night. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, sorry.
So then you take an 11-day break. So now the next option is, do you play him against Orlando? So let's put a guy who just came off a quad strain, which is clearly taken longer than we expected, into this 85-degree weather, 90-degree weather down Orlando, and play him down there. Or you just wait to the next home match and play him against Inter Miami. So, Dave, I want to hear your thoughts because you missed this part of the conversation. Where Bedoya obviously has to come back eventually. I think he's not going to be done for the year. So when does Bedoya come back in your eyes?
I think she has to slowly integrate him back in. That's my biggest concern. I'm surprised that no one's actually asked Jim this yet. It's like when Ali comes back into this, when Ali's fully fit, ready to play, is he going to be willing to change what's been working to fit Ali into the team? You know, taking out Leon Flack in that midfield three that they've got going on at the moment, Flack, Martinez and Gazdag, or McGlynn, Martinez and Gazdag. Is he willing to, disrupt that, or is he willing to go back and change formation to accommodate Bedoya in? Like, that's my biggest concern, is that he just shoves him straight back into the lineup. I wouldn't mind, slowly building him up, giving him minutes, 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here off the bench. I think Jose, you probably mentioned it a couple of times as well, like being that sort of player you bring on with that experience and that sort of know-how just to help close out a tight game, or, in that sort of situation, as opposed to, chucking him on with, just chuck him into the fire straight away and, sacrificing what you have had in your midfield, which has looked a lot more dynamic in recent weeks. Because, no disrespect to Ali, I think his level of performance has dropped a lot in comparison, from last year to this year. I don't know if it was the injury that occurred around the MLS Cup final, which has impacted him. And obviously the injuries have started to pile up a bit now. But he hasn't looked the same player. And I just don't think, obviously, you would lose a lot bringing him back in. That's my biggest concern, is whether Jim is going to risk what he has built with the team over the last 9 games or 8 games or whatever without Ali, and chuck him straight back in because he's the club captain. He's my main guy. He plays 90 minutes because he's club captain.
Unfortunately, Damian Lowe's injury plays a part in this, because before Saturday night, you had 3 center backs that were playing really well, right? Now Damian Lowe hears a pop in his hamstring. Thankfully, he has, about 2 weeks off. He doesn't have to come back against Orlando. He could wait until Inter Miami, give it a full 2 weeks to heal up his hamstring. But let's say his hamstring's worse than we expect. Is Jim going to put Brandon Craig in the back line to make it the consistent 3 in the back and to go with what's working? Or now the Bedoya is back, say, okay, well, we got the captain back. Lowe's on the nursing another injury. Let's go back to the diamond. Jose, what do you think?
I think this is a mess. And again, roll the tape. I've been asking, how does this team move on from Alejandro Bedoya despite, despite
Can you read Eric's comment real quick?
Nah, 90 minutes for... Yeah.
Eric says 90 minutes for Bedoya every game, milked every last time of the contract.
No, I mean, I was honestly amazed when I saw that he had a 1-year deal or extension, whatever, for this year. And again, we thank him for everything he's done for the city and helping bring the World Cup and rally support for this team and being a spokesperson for gun control and just a citizen, whatever. However you stand on that last issue, it doesn't matter to me. I just someone who's been very vocal about supporting things that he's passionate about. But I'm thinking that Jim goes back to the diamond. I can't imagine that he, messes around with trying to, duplicate what has been working despite not having the bodies to do it. And, what game but to bring Bedoya in to the Inter Miami FC circus that's going to be Subaru Park, where people who are not realizing how transfer windows work, thinking that Messi's going to be there on June 24th when his contract with PSG ends on the 30th. Buying tickets. I think I saw some tickets going standing room for sure in the hundreds of dollars. Never mind, River End going for $150, $200 to know that he's not going to play. I don't even know if he's going to be in the stadium, but nonetheless, I just don't know. This is a problem for Jim to sort out, and this is why he gets paid what he gets paid. Though the question remains, what is he going to do with his contract as we approach the end of the year or the second? I don't know. Is it fair to say we're going into the second half of the year, or is that after Leagues Cup?
So, yeah.
Okay.
Well, then there's the thing. So now you have multiple problems here. Not only is Damian Lowe hurt for an unquestionable amount of time, you also have the Gold Cup coming our way, which means Andre Blake's going to be gone for at least 5 or 6 games.
Oh no.
Bendick's gonna. So then there's more discussions. I mean, I know this is obviously several weeks away now, but it's there's not much to talk about tonight. So why don't we talk about it?
Well, that's why wins like Saturday would have given us the cushion.
Yeah.
But to Dave's point, it's like you win 9 in a row, you have 9 on beaten streaks.
Totally.
You're gonna blow one,
Totally get that, Mike. But as we start thinking about these problems and needing some cushion, and teams like Cincinnati are not gonna drop points as often as we think. I don't think so. That team is very, very good, despite barely beating a Union B team.
Yeah. So Eric brings up a point. He says, doesn't this predicament feel oddly similar to the Sixers' position the last few years with aging teams? I don't disagree with that. It feels like they just don't know how to transition to the next level of being contenders. I get what he's going for. Then he says, I'm selling my River End ticket for $1,000 a piece. 1 heart and 1 firstborn. Tickets are going nuts. I mean, we can talk about that as well, too. But talking about Messi, come to the MLS. But Dave, I mean, what do you think with this Gold Cup issue now? I mean, if Damian Lowe's staying with us, but do you go with Bendick for those 5 games? Do you try Holden Trent?
Yeah, I was going to say, is it Holden Trent season? I thought it would be the time in the Open Cup. I thought, why not? Obviously, I think Jim also wants to try and win it, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting period. I think Jim will go with experience, and obviously,
yeah, he will.
He will go with experience. I think the fortunate thing for the Union is the fact that obviously with this Open Cup, the only player that they probably will lose is obviously. Andre Blake, which of course, I'm not saying that Andre Blake's a bad player, but that he will probably be the only player that goes off on international duty to play in that tournament. Yeah. As a matter of fact, unless Damian Lowe magically recovers in the next 2 weeks and is good to play.
I'll correct you for a second. I think you meant to say Gold Cup, not Open Cup.
Yeah, Gold Cup.
My apologies.
Yes, just saving you from some of the listeners who will send me a DM saying how dumb we are.
Sorry, the Gold Cup.
I can think of a couple.
There's too many. Yeah. But obviously, Andre Blake's best goalkeeper in the MLS. He's probably one of the most underrated goalkeepers in the world. I feel like he hasn't got the recognition that he does deserve. I think there has been so many discussions about he should be playing in Europe, and he should have probably gone to Europe a long time ago. And I think it's been the Union's victory, the fact he stayed there for that long. But I think the Union are fortunate that they've got no other players going off into the tournament. So you'll look at a lot of teams that will probably lose Mexican players and other North and Central American players, Canadian players to this tournament, whereas the Union will probably lose 1 or 2 at max and will hopefully be at full strength. Apart from that, obviously, we know how big Andre Blake is, and that's the biggest issue.
And it's a tough stretch too during his absence. It's not like it's an easy round of games either.
No. Does the Gold Cup coincide with the Leagues Cup at all, or does that end?
Oh, it should end beforehand, no, Jose?
I think so. I don't think that they were dumb enough to try to put it A and B, as the whole idea of the Leagues Cup is to market the best players in the MLS and Liga MX.
I was sort of hoping you could have had a couple of throwaway games in there, and then
I'll fact check quick on Val's in the background doing it for us.
But the other point I was going to make about Jim Curtin's contract is obviously his contract's up at the end of this season.
Correct,
I believe, and the USA is still dilly-dallying around trying to find a permanent manager.
Convenient, is it not?
That was I was sort of sat that thing. I was looking at, I might have been the squad or someone speaking about the head coach the other day, and then I was like, I thought in my head, has Jim Curtin signed a new deal yet? I was like, is it up this year or next year? Because it's awfully convenient, obviously, since to be honest, I mean, I don't know. I forgot the old name of the US men's national team head coach, but obviously since he's gone due to what happened in the past, there, like the USA haven't actually replaced him yet. Obviously, they're going through, sort of temporary managers and people just to cover things. Is it? And of course, I think the one of the guys going off to the US camp for the Gold Cup is part of the union organisation, isn't he? So I feel like I'm hoping Jim signs a new deal, but I think the longer it goes on, and I think that'll probably be a little timeline to look at in the background.
Speaking of coaches, you saw Neville went with Canada.
Yeah,
Phil Neville's on the assistant for the Canadian team for the Gold Cup.
That is quite funny that Messi
failing up.
Messi announces his he's going to join Miami after Phil Neville's been sacked. But but yeah, I think that's going to be another sort of weird timeline, which hopefully that we can put to the back of our minds. But I feel like it's something that's going to perhaps become a bit of a I don't know what the word is. Sort of words gone from it. It's going to be something that's going to perhaps start to track or trend as the season goes on. Is the longer the US men's national team doesn't have a head coach, and the longer Jim Curtin doesn't sign a contract extension, people might end up starting putting two and two together, and that's when panic buttons start to get pressed and alarm bells start to ring a bit.
I'll hold my reservations for that feeling there, Jose. So I know you mentioned on the private channel the dates for the Open Cup and here we go again, the Gold Cup and the Leagues Cup. So go ahead. What are your thoughts on the scheduling there and everything?
Yeah, so the Gold Cup ends on the 16th of July, and then Leagues Cup conveniently kicks off on the 21st. So it's going to be a very tight turnaround there for a lot of players, and frankly, it feels more and more, though the situation we find ourselves in, I think, lends to us being a little more desperate to find a way to qualify for the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
Not CCL
Oh,
anymore.
is it?
Champions Cup. It got
That was
rebranded.
That was my other question. Aren't they expanding the amount of teams that are in it?
Correct.
So, does that help with MLS play at all, or is it literally just other leagues get more places as opposed to the US? Or
no, I don't know the exact breakdown, Dave. I think it just means that I think there's one more spot. You have a U.S. Open Cup winner, you have MLS winner, you have Canadian Championship, and I think the Leagues Cup champion also gets in. So when you start thinking about our financial situation, not that we're in dire straits right now, I should say, but it's good to be competing in continental cups like the Champions Cup. So we'll see what happens, but Dave, just a quick shout out. Yes, BJ Callahan, a Philadelphia Union alum of many moons ago, but also an Ursinus alum. So I work at Ursinus, so it was kind of neat to see him and get the job, and sort of our office sort of freaking out of like, oh my God, he was just on campus not too long ago, or thought about like doing something for us. So it'll be intriguing to see what happens, and yes, we need to qualify for the Champions Cup, but does Jim then use the Leagues Cup as a developmental tool for some young players, the Brendan Craigs of the world and the Jack McLinns and the Sullivans? I don't know. I mean, Jim was...
Well, we thought the Open Cup was going to be, to Eric's point, saying Open Cup again. Thank you for keeping us honest here, Eric. We obviously off our game today. We thought the Open Cup was going to be that, Jose. But
no, we did. And, when I got to ask Jim the question, and he alluded the second part of my question, which was, his thoughts on the performance of the under-20s at the World Cup, despite exiting probably actually they ended up losing to the winning team in Uruguay, which is, I think, better than losing to a team that just loses the next round. But nonetheless, how do we incorporate these U20 players back into the roster? And obviously we saw McLinn, who he praised very, very highly. Brendan Craig, when does he get his chance, right? Also, Sullivan, what does he have to do to buy some time when you have players like Torres and et al. Also getting more time than him? So I'm intrigued to see what we utilize the Leagues Cup for, and is that going to be our U.S. Open Cup this year as a way to develop more talent, continue the pipeline per se? I don't know.
I don't think you can, because you're basically now desperate to find your way to get a trophy. If we had advanced to the Open Cup and earned it, then you could say, well, we can maybe flirt Sorensen in there if you want, or we could bring in, Pierre, You can't do
Yeah.
that now, especially because MLS play isn't even going to happen at the same time. It's not like you have to worry about splitting games. You have a break in the season. You focus solely on the League's Cup and you go from there.
I think that's the one sort of a thing, isn't it? So we said, you mentioned Brandon Craig, especially like for him. I think we sort of like Carl Turner and a couple of other younger players. I mean, Anthony Fontana at the end of his stint with the team, essentially being frozen out. I mean, like, of course he's around the squad every week and he's been involved, but he's just not getting any game time. It's got to get to a point in your career for a younger guy where you have to either go out on loan and actually get that experience, or you go elsewhere and you play your trade. That's the one thing. Obviously, I know Jeff Mitchell. Obviously a massive Union fan, great guy. He's a big fan of Brandon Craig.
Big fan.
Big fan. I know he wants. I mean, I want to give him a chance. I mean, Jim apparently he plays great for the US under-20s and is a real leader there, and he seemed to be one of the main standouts. Outside of Jack McGlynn, out of that team from the under-20 World Cup. So I mean, I'd be interested to see what he does have to do to get game time. Perhaps Jim didn't want to put him into the game in San Jose on the road, out of nowhere, without having perhaps halftime just to sit him down, go through the game plan. Perhaps maybe he, if Damian Lowe was out for the Orlando game, they can usher him in, give him enough time to prepare. I think that might be something worth doing. Whether Jim does that, we know it'll probably be a back four or Kyle playing left centre back. But I feel like there has to be a point where of course, we've seen all these other youngsters get game time. Ned Harriel, Jack McGlynn, Paxton Aronson. Of course, he's now not here with us, but he's broken in. Quinn Sullivan. Do you know what I mean? These younger players have got to get to a point where the Brandon Craig is good enough to step up, or he isn't, because he's not getting any. He needs to start playing at the men's level if he wants to reach where he is as a centre back. As a much more physical game than that level, as opposed to playing U2 every week and you're playing 18, 19-year-olds. He needs to go out and get that experience of playing against the Corey Burks of the world and big physical strikers and strikers who can make life hell.
Good segue, Dave, talking about the U2.
Yeah, well.
Why, Jose? Is there something happening with the U2?
I don't know. Maybe something on July 28th and just the massive crowd that's going to descend onto Chester for the first time. It's going to be the first time that they go to a neighborhood that maybe they don't feel so safe around. Wrexham will be coming to Subaru Park, visiting Chester to have a friendly, not against the Philadelphia Union, but the Philadelphia Union too. So a little controversy to be had in a way as well with the ticket pricing. My understanding is that ticket pricing will be as much, if not just a little bit more than typical men's game. So
what?
At least $30, which is that's
Disney stars Paul Mullen.
That's
Ollie Palmer.
That's a proper Union game ticket for us to go and watch the Union too. I haven't gone through my email, but I'm sure there's something there about purchasing tickets. I know that they're not part of the plan. I think as a season ticket member, you get 3 Union 2 games for free. And I'm also intrigued. During this Wrexham game, are we going to have free parking like all Union 2 games, or is there going to be paid parking? So another way to make some money.
Parking. What are you talking about?
Listen, it's a great opportunity for the Philadelphia Union to expose their Union 2 players to a decent quality team at that level. Listen, LA Galaxy is actually playing their actual first team against Wrexham.
No,
we are
they're
not.
the second team.
Not LAFC is playing. I'm sorry. LA Galaxy will be playing their first team against Wrexham. We are playing our second, obviously the Union 2 against Wrexham. You can double check that, or Val, you can check it for me. But my understanding is that LA Galaxy will actually be putting their first men's team versus their academy team.
See, now I thought Mike Borton had mentioned that it was also going to be the second team from LA. I'm going to double check right now, but go ahead, Jose.
The controversy is that the ticket pricing, and it's another situation of having to opt out. So if you're a season ticket member, my understanding is just check your email. If you don't want anything to do with the circus that's going to be Chester that day on July 28th, opt out. Otherwise, you'll be getting a ticket per seat that you have.
So a couple things here. So for one, Eric mentions, I'm losing track of the comments here. So Valerie says, my season tickets are the same price for the Wrexham game. Eric says they did the same with the international games. No parking. And then exposed, there are children present. I missed all this stuff. I'm sorry, guys.
Sorry, is LA Galaxy second team?
It
is
is.
LA Galaxy.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I must have misread the graphic, so I apologize because I thought to myself, really, LA Galaxy's putting out their full team against a fourth tier English team? Like that's interesting. Like that's not a great look, but shoot your shot. Obviously, Ryan Reynolds needs to make money in some way, shape, or form. So send them to LA, and I guess send them to PA as well.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, I get the attraction behind. I'm sure Rob McEnany will be there because it's a local game, or at least maybe he will. I don't know.
Does he know
But
the union exists?
he mentioned them briefly in one of his tweets. I mean, I don't. I know some people are kind of upset with Rob in a way because I think he even mentioned bringing Gareth Bale to Wrexham to play, and people were like, "Oh wow, know your audience here and where you're from, Rob." But I mean, listen, I watched the first season of Welcome to Wrexham. It's fun. I know Jose, you mentioned trying to get a press pass to get in there. I know we do get passes for Union too, so I might swing by as well. Just to say hello. But it's good exposure for the Union 2 players, I guess, if you want to call it that. But Dave, I want to kind of touch back on your Brandon Craig point. I don't see why you can't give him a chance. Every time you've had players like Paxton and Quinn do well in the U.S. national level team, and they immediately get playing time right afterwards. I don't see why, if Damian Lowe is hurt and this formation has been working so well, how can you not put Brandon Craig in there? At least one chance to see if it works,
I think, you've got to give him a chance, especially it's a home game, after a 10-day break or however long it's going to be off. The crowd's going to be excited to see the Union back. I think it's giving the opportunity. You don't know what you've got. I mean, obviously, Jim works with him every single day in training. Perhaps he struggles in training. Who knows? But I feel like at some point he's going to have to make that step up, whether it is on loan or if he just go off to another team and plays there.
Eric says the Deadpool and Always Sunny money is running low. And Jillian says Rob was at the MLS Cup repping the Union in the opening ceremony. Okay, so then I apologize, Rob, for some slight joke at you, but still, he calls for bail after that.
Shout out, Jillian.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Jillian, for stopping by. Appreciate it.
But the biggest, that friendly though, of course, if Brandon Craig's not playing, that friendly is the perfect barometer for him. He's playing against you think about lower league. You think about English lower league, because obviously you'll probably be more familiar. It's long ball, it's physical. Strikers, they love to batter defenders, and they both love to battle with each other. Playing against Paul Mullin, you'll be playing against Ollie Palmer. You'll be playing against experienced Football League players and non-league players. It'll be a perfect opportunity for Brandon Craig to sort of test himself if they do give him the opportunity to play against that sort of side. Who knows what it could open up for him if he has a really good game there and it pans back to the first team. But he has to start playing in a professional men's environment as opposed to playing against second teams every other week and just sitting on the bench and watching from the bench. For a centre half, especially, I sort of understand that sometimes they do develop and blossom or grow sooner in terms of their play and how they approach the game. But at some point, he needs to get that experience. You even see in England, obviously, Man City, players they give their youth team players, although they don't. Although they never really feature in the league, they always get League Cup games, always get FA Cup games. That opportunity hasn't come for Brandon. And it's got to get to a point for him. Obviously, I know he's still young, but
welcome to the Philadelphia Union, Dave, where we don't give players chances. I mean, look at the countless players we've mentioned over the past 2 years or so.
Listen, one thing to keep an eye on, and we can move on, Mike, as we maybe start thinking about wrapping up. But
sure.
Keep an eye out on the Sullivan family as well, right? You have Quinn, who is under contract, but let's not forget about Caven, who is getting a lot of eyes as just over. What is he, under 17? I can't remember.
Yeah, he played with he played in the GA Cup for the 16s.
I say summer, over this, whatever it was, winter, spring. Yeah. And was turning a lot of heads and getting a lot of eyes. And I think a couple of scouts even commenting, obviously under anonymity, of saying that he's probably the best 2000 plus born after 2000 player that they have seen in a long time. And I think Dortmund sniffing around and some other teams who are maybe interested in bringing him in as a potential future star of the the world's game. So we'll see. Just keep an eye on the Sullivan family as well. Obviously, we lost another young talent who went to a different academy because as a package deal with a younger sibling earlier this year as well. So it can happen. It's just the opportunity isn't there, and then you gotta just hope that the Union, and I think they're good enough to allow players to go where they will be wanted and where they want to be as well. So intriguing to see, and we'll see. I'm really interested to see, and we can wrap up in a second, but what this Wrexham, what the circus is going to be around that game versus Inter Miami on the 24th. I think that they're going to be different, but very similar in a lot of ways. And I want to say, having had a family member here today when the game was announced, immediately text 3 friends who are all going to go. All 4 of them don't know much about soccer, which is okay. I'm not here to gatekeep, but just folks who are just completely in because it's Wrexham, right? Yep. So that's the type of crowd we're going to get, which is great. We're showing the Philadelphia Union to people who maybe don't know much about them, but man, that crowd is going to be very interesting.
It's going to be a lot of casuals. Eric mentions par for the course in Philly. The Union bucked the trend for a few years. Philly teams love to let go of talented players, but never play and let them grow them, which is so true. I can think of players in multiple teams from Philadelphia who've let players go to go on and do good things. Look at Bob for Florida from a hockey standpoint. But listen, I would have never gone to a Union 2 game, so it's getting me to go see them play because I want to see Wrexham. Let's be honest, right?
I hope you get press passed. I hope that I don't know if your MLS proper pass gets you in. I know I do the game by game request, so I hope that we're able to cover it for AAT. That would be fun.
That'd be badass. Go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say as well, I think it'd be a good opportunity, as we sort of mentioned, a couple of names, from the U2 and players who've made the occasional appearance on the bench. I mean,
sure.
Again, like Nelson Pierre, Sorensen, even Rafinelli might even get some minutes in that game. He doesn't really play for the first team. Maybe Rafinelli gets some minutes against a team like Wrexham. It's going to be a good opportunity for fans to get some eyes on perhaps some players that we actually become more accustomed to and familiar with in the future. Like, I don't know if Jose Riasco's still around the U2, if he is involved, but
I haven't heard his name in forever. It feels
it's been a minute.
So there's going to be a lot of younger players who that could motivate them to play better. Try and not only get the attention of Jim Curtin and the fans, but perhaps some outside foreign interest for a potential loan. Maybe I don't know. It's a big opportunity.
Eric's been on fire today. He mentions, I went when they were Bethlehem Steel, which still had the best alternate kit, by the way. If I go, I want Deadpool scoring a goal. So also it's funny because I was looking at the past jerseys, and the Bethlehem Steel black jersey is still the best. I love that kit. I wish I bought one. I had a hat and I lost it, and I'm pissed off that I did. But listen, once the Wrexham match gets closer, I do hope we can kind of have some buzz with it, maybe do a little bit on the show for it. But the Union are off for now 11 days. So we're going to have a nice break, gentlemen. I know we all need it because there's a lot of soccer coming this summer. We're obviously going to be watching the Gold Cup from afar. We're going to be covering the Leagues Cup. MLS is still going on full throttle, so it's going to be a lot of soccer. So I kind of want 11 days off to just relax for a bit before we go into everything. No bet the boys in blue because we're obviously so far away from the Orlando match and Miami match. So, Dave, I'll start with you first. Let's do some final thoughts, and then I'll read the sponsors.
Yeah, I think obviously it's frustrating to come off a loss, but I think that loss has allowed us to have more talking points on a week where perhaps we wouldn't have as much to discuss.
Sure.
Obviously, next week we're going to have a bit of a busier show, with sort of entering the second half of the season and two games to preview. So that'd be good to delve into. But I think, as you said, it's nice to have a little break. Refocus, and we'll go again next week on this weekend off. Now we can all enjoy. Summer is coming, so we can all enjoy and do what we do during the summer and have a good weekend with perhaps watching some focusing on Nashville against St. Louis City or Cincinnati, some of our rivals at the top of the Eastern Conference.
Love it. And Valerie says she's going to go to the Wrexham game. And Eric says, I hate that I didn't get that jersey. Me too, man. It kills me. Because if you find on eBay somewhere, it's like $150 or $250 plus dollars. It's expensive as hell.
It's a $300 jersey, Mike.
It's crazy now. It's insane. Jose, what are your final thoughts here for the sponsors?
Yeah, bummer that the game ended the way it did. It would have been great to claw some points away from Cincinnati. They're going to be a tough team to catch. And again, 3-4 weeks ago, we all thought that the world was ending, but somehow we've sorted it out, and we're actually not too far away considering how competitive the West is for ones. to potentially being in the Supporter Shield race as well. So interesting to see what shakes out. 11 days to hopefully get everybody healthy. I've never heard about a hamstring popping. I don't know that was a thing. So learned something new over the weekend.
Trust me, as somebody who's popped his hamstring, it's a real thing.
No, I did not know that was a thing. I've been blessed to not have any of those injuries. So yeah, excited to get a tiny little bit of a break, but doesn't mean that we're going to skip a show. We're going to have something next week for sure, previewing games and whatnot. So continue to follow AAT Sports for Across the Pitch next week. That's our promise to you, to always have a show on a weekly basis.
Should I shoot my shot and DM Rob McEnany and see if I can get him on the show?
I'm actually, it would be neat for us to maybe start getting some. I know I talked about this, maybe some player interviews, especially the Spanish-speaking ones, and even just maybe we get the Union 2 coach in some way, shape, or form. I'm sure he could use some media work.
There you go. Listen, I'll see what Hollywood strings I can pull and try to get Rob McElhenney on. But no, my final thoughts here. Like I said, nice to have a break. You really can't get too upset with a loss after 9 unbeaten here. And you know what? I know people are I know people want to go for Cincinnati because they're now in striking distance to some extent. But you know what? Supporter Shield to me is not that important. What I really want is to be between 2nd and 4th by the time the season ends. Make sure you at least get 1 or 2 home playoff games and then go from there. Because to me, the home playoff match being the 2nd seed is far more important than the Supporter Shield right now. Because I have bigger aspirations. And as we've seen in the past, the Supporter Shield doesn't automatically mean you're going to win the cup either. Last year's LAFC team is few and far between. So that's my thoughts here. I'm going to read off the sponsors and read off any final comments here. I know Eric's been feeling it. Valerie, it says popping can happen, and Eric still blames Wando, which again, I still have to get the score for that. Listen, I was playing flag football and I was heard my hamstring pop, and Jose, it is not a fun feeling. Let's get to the sponsors. Check out Statement Games at statementgames.com for a fun new way to fantasy sports entertainment. You can win gift cards and prizes. It's free to sign up at statementgames.com. Doan Distillery and the Trolley Barn Public Market in Quakertown. Go to doandistillery.com to check out their wide variety of drinks and spirits. We have Vinny's Pizza and Restaurant in Allentown, PA. Discover a new favorite by trying their top pizzas and so much more. Check out their website at vinnyspizzarestaurant.com. Stuff of the Grills at off Iroquois Trail number 5 in Allentown, or at stuffofthegrills.com for homemade hot and cold sandwiches, salads, appetizers, baked goods available for any event. If you can't make the Wrexham match, order Stuff of the Grills and get some catering done, and there you go. You have a little watch party at the house. We have Across the Pitch gear and all the AAT Sports Network gear at aatsportsnetwork.com/shop. We have MargotReedStudio.com or Margot Reed Studio on IG. Congratulations to her. I know she just got married this past weekend, so awesome to hear. I love it. I can't wait to talk to her again. And then last but not least, we have a commercial that we want to play. Dave, you missed it last week.
Oh, I'm looking forward to listening to it now.
No, it's a doozy, and we will end on that. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night. Support for AAT Sports Network is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. With this offer, you'll join over 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Enjoy 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code AAT Sports. That is AAT Sports at manscaped.com. As a married man, I have been there. Personal grooming can be difficult and pretty painful. Luckily, the Performance Package 4.0 has arrived, and oh man, it is a game changer. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, the Crop Reviver toner, a pair of performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all of your new tools. First off, the Lawnmower 4.0. This thing is the future of grooming. Because this trimmer is waterproof, you can say goodbye to the mess. You thought that was good, but want to take your grooming game even further to the next level? The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and provides proprietary skin-safe technology which helps reduce nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate nose holes. Their Crop Preserver ball deodorant and Crop Reviver ball toner will change the way you approach your hygiene routine. Trust me when I say this, fellas, your balls will be thankful. To top it all off, Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Bring your comfort in boxers to another level. So remember, get 20% off and free shipping with the code AAT Sports at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com, and use code AAT Sports to support us. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
Eric. No wonder Jose was talking about exposing. He used Manscaped. Good night, everybody.